What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. We have a lot to discuss in this one as we get into the rest of this week's most likely really eventful trading week. We have the FOMC meeting tomorrow with Jerome Powell. Again, most likely we are not going to see a move in interest rates, but the statements from the Fed and the tone that they make those statements with are going to be very important to how the market's going to react moving forward. Now, we have a couple of interesting things that I want to discuss with you guys as it relates to kind of today's action and the overall big picture of the market. And then obviously we have a lot to discuss with some of your favorite names here, Sofi, Neo, and Palantir in particular. We have a lot of catalysts. We have some really great earnings to talk about. So again, guys, before we get into all of that information, if you guys do enjoy the information and analysis that I provide for you guys in these videos here, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot in spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you guys are, and turn on notifications so you're notified every time these videos do end up getting posted live. And as always, absolutely massive shout out to all of the members of my private trading and investing community, Less Trades, More Profits. I'm going to throw up some of the gain screenshots on the screen right now from really over the last week with the group. Guys, you aren't going to see these types of results anywhere else. The main feedback that I receive from everybody that hops into the group is, one, I didn't realize that the market could really be this simple, and two, that they wish that they were doing this all along. Now, if you guys do want to hop in, remember, I am running an absolutely awesome sale for you guys right now. 50% off your first month with code July. It literally comes out to $1 a day. Prices are going to be going up in September. So if you want to lock in the lower rate, guys, hop in there with us and potentially get some of these gains like this for yourself. Make sure you guys check out that link down below. But the first thing that I really want to talk about here is, again, we do have this trade deadline coming up at the end of the week. That's not really something that I'm paying that much attention to right now. Again, we are seeing some intraday volatility based on some of these comments. Again, India may pay tariffs of 20 to 25%. And a lot of these economists and big market participants are looking at how this is actually going to affect the market moving forward, really in the short and medium term here. But what we have to realize is that this administration is using these tariffs on kind of a two-pronged approach, but they all want to end up somewhere in the middle. Trump wants to get kind of things on his agenda done and get some of his needs met. And he also wants to bring in some more of this quote-unquote revenue from these other countries and corporations to the United States. So it is very possible that even down the road, we could see these tariff rates moved, and these negotiations are going to continue for an extended period of time, which we've talked about time and time again on this channel. I think a lot of people this year were really thinking that this tariff situation was going to come out, they were going to negotiate, it was going to be done, and we were going to kind of move on. But really, on average, it does take about 18 months for these big trade deals to actually come to some sort of conclusion, and there's so many different trade deals going on at once with so many different large players in the global economy. This is most likely going to take a pretty significant period of time in order to play out. Now, thinking about the broad market here, in general, when we take a look at S&P 500 futures here, ES on a daily time frame, again, it does make sense that we aren't seeing a crazy amount of movement up or down on the day before the FOMC meeting, again, tomorrow, down about 0.25% here. But what I want to show you guys before we start talking about these individual names is the chart of the dollar. And this is something that we've been talking about a lot on this channel recently, especially when we started to break all-time highs in the market. When the market broke all-time highs, this was that first starting point where we could start to see all of the foreign money that was so heavily concentrated in US markets in 2024 and leading into 2025 start to come back to US markets after they repatriated or took a lot of that money that they had invested in the US back to their domestic countries. That's why we saw in really the first quarter of this year here that a lot of these foreign markets were outperforming US markets in 2025. And a lot of that was coming from that additional demand from all of that money going back from the US to those other countries around the world. Now that we are seeing the dollar starting to strengthen versus this basket of 6 other currencies here, we also have to think about what this means for the market as a whole. If we are going to see foreign money start flowing back into the US, and again, the dollar chart right here, Dixie moving up, is showing a greater demand for dollars across the board. Well, a lot of that money is going to have to get invested somewhere. That's going to be in the treasury market for buying US bonds, and it's also going to be in US equity markets. Now, the other thing I want to just briefly talk about here is a little bit of trend. We noticed a lot in 2024 with a lot of this foreign money flowing into the US that I think could start coming back this year, is when you start to look at this overnight move in the market and you see that when futures are open, they start to trend to the upside and then they start to sell off once market opens like this. We're seeing this happen a lot. This could mean that a lot of this foreign money is coming back into the futures market and into the major indexes in the US in the overnight period, where again, it might be during those foreign countries' market hours, and then US investors are starting to sell off some of these assets during the day, again, because those are the investors that have been in this market, either buying the dip on these lows that we saw earlier this year and all the way up through these all-time highs. So again, just kind of looking at things like that, looking at where money is flowing globally is definitely going to give us a better picture of what to expect next. Now, the first name that I want to talk about here, guys, is Sofi. Now, this is again one that I outlined for everybody a little over a year ago at this point. It was in the beginning of July of last year at $6.55. At one point today, we were almost up about 4x on our initial investment here. Really, really, really solid results from this one, guys. And again, recently, when we throw this on the weekly time frame, another time that I outlined this one here, in the YouTube videos, in all of the streams, as a very, very solid spot that if you wanted to get long Sofi, this would have been the time to do it. And that was right around 1360 here, this weekly breakout that followed through very nicely. Now, is this the time to buy Sofi up here? In my opinion, probably not. Even though we had really, really strong earnings today. Again, the company posted net revenue of $854.9 million for the quarter ended June 30th, up 43% from a year earlier. Adjusted net revenue was up 44% from the same period last year. And again, net income came in at $97.3 million, up from $17.4 million there. Again, membership rose 34% year over year to 11.7 million here. Really, really strong numbers across the board for Sofi, which again, the market in general wants to see out of this name. A lot of people like to say Sofi's just a bank. They kind of cast it aside. And Sofi really over the last kind of year and a half here hasn't necessarily gotten the love that a lot of people think it deserves in the market. Now, obviously, recently with the stock almost doubling in a short period of time, you are starting to see a lot of that money flowing into Sofi, and these numbers are definitely, in my opinion, a sign of more positive growth to come, especially in the crypto space with Sofi. Again, getting those offerings back out to their consumers is definitely going to be something that drives user growth and also revenue growth forward, especially in a very crypto-friendly environment. So congratulations to all Sofi holders. This one is looking very solid over the next 5 to 10 years. But again, there is a time and a place to be buying and selling. Now, next up on our list, guys, another retail favorite, and that is going to be NEO. So looking at the chart of NEO right now, guys, just technically, you guys in LTMP know that this is starting to show the initial signs of a very, very solid short-term bullish setup here. Now, with something like NEO that I already own about 4,000 shares at 455, again, not a large position for me. I'm kind of treating this like an option, and we talked a lot about this in the live stream today. So most days of the week, it's usually Monday through Thursday. I do those live streams for you guys every day at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time on this channel here. Tomorrow we're not going to, because I'm going to be live for FOMC in the afternoon, and then Fridays live at 9:15. So if you guys want to show up for that, we'd love to have you over there. But looking at NEO here, this may not be one that I would necessarily trade, but seeing it coming down here and starting to get close to giving us that initial sign that it might be respecting this daily 10 exponential moving average is definitely a positive development, especially after the aggressive move to the upside that we saw from the 350s. I know a lot of you guys have seen a lot of those other names that have fired off over the last few weeks here. Open Door, Krispy Kreme, American Eagle, GoPro, and a lot of those, they have shark fin. That's what I like to call them. It kind of looks like a big shark fin on the chart. They move up very quickly and then move back down just as fast. And NEO is not doing that right now, showing that these buyers and sellers are willing to hold NEO up at these higher prices in the short term and waiting for more additional information, and that is going to come from this Onvo L90 launch. Again, there are some rumors that these pre-orders for this Onvo L90 are quite significant. Now, what I will say is that the last time that Onvo had one of these big rollouts, it did not go very well. This is something that we have to be aware of as investors here. We can't just talk about the positives. We also have to talk about the potential negatives or some of the risks out there in any individual names or in the market as a whole. Hopefully, the NIO management, the Onvo management has really solidified and fixed these issues that they had back last year when they were rolling out one of their new models, and that could easily drive price action even higher. Now, it is possible too that when this actually ends up launching here, we end up seeing even more sales coming in, and something that we've talked about a lot with NIO here, just thinking from kind of this sector of the market as a whole. NIO is obviously positioned as a premium electric vehicle maker and manufacturer, and it's going to be very difficult for everyday citizens in a global economy that is as difficult, let's say, as it is right now globally to justify going out and spending all of this money on one of these higher priced vehicles when they could get something like an Onvo model or a Firefly model that is still going to do everything that they want their vehicle to do at a much lower price point. So NIO playing the volume game is definitely something that they need to do in order to have long-term success. Now, again, this company has done a lot of over-promising and under-delivering, and at the end of the day, if they are able to execute on some of their goals and hit some of these profitability metrics, obviously, there's going to be a big re-rating by the market, and they easily could trade a lot higher over the next year and a half, 2 years. But if not, this one's probably going to end up kind of hanging out at these lower levels. And if they continue to struggle, it could even go lower than where we're trading now. So again, never marry any one of these investments, guys. I see it a lot, especially with things like NIO, that people are maybe kind of putting all their eggs in one basket here. Again, you have to be very thesis driven in the market. Never marry these names. As soon as it tells you that the thesis is broken, then you need to be exiting. But that has not happened yet with NIO here. Now, the last one that I want to talk about with you guys is Palantir. Again, we do have earnings coming up with Palantir on Monday, August 4th. I do think that it is possible that in the short term, we do end up seeing the market hold Palantir to a little bit more of a higher standard than it has been held to really in the last year here. This company is still, in my opinion, wildly overvalued. But again, that doesn't mean you go out into the open market and short this name. It also doesn't mean you go out and buy it. This is one that I highlighted for everybody in the 15. So it's very nice to now talk about this name as being wildly overvalued when we saw the potential of this one in the teens here, right around that 15, 16 area for everybody. So if you're in this name, again, it could be smart to maybe sell some covered calls on a portion of your position. Most of you guys are up at around 1,000% gains, or maybe even a little bit more on this name in particular. But I do think that there is going to come a time where the market is not going to feel as comfortable with Palantir's current valuation here. So again, just be aware of those risks. Now, there was also something interesting that came out with Palantir recently, or really over the last couple of days here as well. We did see this news headline coming out, if this wants to load here. DoD tests AI models that make it easy to switch from vendors like Palantir. Again, the Department of Defense and other federal agencies have been testing AI models from Microsoft and OpenAI, specifically aimed at extracting data from analytics applications run by contractors like Palantir and Lockheed Martin. Now, all this really is, this is going to be something that you Palantir bulls probably are going to really like. All this is doing is introducing a little bit more competition into the marketplace, and Palantir, again, is kind of the top player in this space right now, and I don't really see them losing a step in the short term here. With all of the technology and the analytical capability that Palantir is providing all of their clients from a commercial side and also the government contracting side, I don't really think that there's anything else out there in the market right now that is generating these types of outcomes. That's why they continue to get all of these new government contracts, all of these new commercial contracts. But again, if the government is going to be your main customer and they want to go out and see if there's anything else better, by all means, Palantir should welcome that competition, because when they do realize, which I think they will, that Palantir is the best out there in the market, that could actually lead to more contracts coming to Palantir's way in the future there. So, guys, that is going to wrap up this video here. If you guys did enjoy the information and analysis I provided for you guys in this one, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It costs you nothing to do it, but it helps me out a whole lot in spreading this information out to as many people who actually want to learn. And again, if you're not subscribed, make sure you guys are, and turn on notifications so you're notified every time these videos end up getting posted live. And for those of you guys that are taking that right step forward and hopping into the Less Trades More Profits community with us, you guys are going to be in the right place. We're going to get you up to speed. Make sure you guys start with the educational learning curriculum videos. If you guys have any questions on anything, just ask. I'm always around to answer. But other than that, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.